Hey, what's going on, everybody? Great to see you out there on this Friday. Hope we're all having a wonderful end to the work week and hopefully all getting ready for that holiday weekend coming up. I know personally I'm very excited to kind of get a break from work and get back home and see some family this weekend and even really through all of next week as well. So hopefully all of you also have a chance to kind of meet up with some family and really enjoy this Christmas. Now, we are going to have some active weather this weekend, I will say, especially over kind of this central plains where we could be having a pretty big time Christmas snowstorm. But if you're watching in the east, don't let your guard down either because we could have some rain moving on through, as well as a big pattern change going towards the new year on the backside of this Christmas storm. And I'm going to break all of that down for you in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. We're getting very close to 4,000 here, and I'd love to get there by Christmas if we can. Also, if you like the video, make sure to hit that like button and comment. Let me know where you're watching from and what you're seeing out there in your neck of the woods. Now, a couple other housekeeping things I did want to mention really quickly. Again, I will be leaving to go back to South Carolina for a week or so tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow morning's video will be the same as it has been really for the past month. After that, though, expect the videos to maybe be structured a little differently. They might be a little shorter just because I'll be back home and I won't have quite as much time to record. And there's also just a lot of things back where I live, including a lot of dogs that'll probably bark, and who knows what other things might happen. So I'm just going to limit the time in the videos, and we're going to hit the basics a little bit more than getting super in depth. But I'll definitely still try to get out a video every day over the break if I can, maybe minus Christmas Day itself, just because, again, I think everyone kind of deserves a day off on the 25th. Alrighty, with all that said, though, let's go ahead and jump into that forecast. Don't want to leave you waiting any longer here. Now, taking a look at current water vapor loop out there, or excuse me, this is infrared satellite we're looking at, not water vapor loop. You'll notice, though, this storm system that's been affecting California is now getting really close to kind of working its way on in towards the Four Corners region, as well as another piece of energy up into the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we've been talking about, both of these pieces of energy are eventually going to work kind of out here into the Great Plains and come together and form one storm system that brings a lot of different types of weather to a lot of different people and is followed up by a big shift back towards winter, again, going towards those last couple days of December and starting off the new year. Now, taking a look at current radar out there as well as watches and warnings, you'll notice we do actually have a pretty big area of some showers this morning up and down the Mississippi River Valley from the Houston area all the way up towards St. Louis, Chicago, and even up towards Des Moines and Minneapolis getting in on some of that rain this morning. Now, some of this might be falling as a little bit of snow up here kind of into the Great Lakes region. In fact, I think we even had a report or two of some sleet in North Carolina this morning, although nothing really to write home about there, as we do still have this cold air mass that is slowly retreating away here over sections of the eastern half of the country. And when that does retreat, let me tell you, we're going to get a big time warm up going into Christmas itself. Now, zooming back out here and taking a look at the western half of the country, again, this is where kind of all of the real active weather is ongoing. In fact, you'll notice this continuing area of rain into Southern California and through Arizona, as well as rain now moving in towards Portland and Seattle. Again, these are those two pieces of energy we're going to be watching out for, and we already have some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up for some of these higher terrains of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah for that storm system that is going to slowly get its act together over the next couple of days. Alrighty, so kind of zooming ahead in time here and taking a look at how this is going to evolve. Again, this is kind of what we're seeing out there right now. This is that southern piece of energy, again, moving through California, and here's that northern piece moving through the PNW there, which, by the way, I always love using fun abbreviations that make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, like I'm from these areas. But Pacific Northwest PNW, PNW. So I don't know, kind of fun to use. Anyway, continuing to move this ahead into time. Again, you'll notice these two pieces of energy slowly kind of become one over parts of Colorado and really much of the Great Plains itself. And this is early in the morning on Christmas Eve, so the 24th. And eventually they really wrap up together going towards Christmas Day itself. And then both kind of linger into this big, almost eye, it looks like it's looking at you here, over much of the central part of the country, going in the days after Christmas. Now, this big kind of storm system, at least the way it looks on this map, is going to do a couple things. One, it is going to bring some unsettled weather for a while, but it's also going to bring other smaller pieces of energy kind of around it that are going to rotate around the bigger storm system itself. And that combined with also some cold air coming in on the backside here could lead to a bit of a tricky forecast here to end out the year. And you'll notice that storm system hangs around for a while before finally some other energy kind of out of Canada comes in, bringing colder air with it. And kind of scoots the old piece of energy out. But as that's happening, we'll have to watch for more pieces of energy kind of on the backside to kind of ride the wave, if you will, and could interact with some of that cold air. And again, all of this could lead to a bit of a change up in the pattern back to a wintry scene again during those last couple days of December and starting off our 2024. Now, we'll start off with the current storm system here out west, and then we'll look at it in the east. Then we're going to zoom out, take a look at some more impacts, and at the end, talk about this potential pattern change. So, again, during the afternoon today, we're going to continue to see some of these showers and maybe even a couple rumbles of thunder roll on through Southern California and through much of Arizona. Now, cannot rule out some snow in the higher elevations there, but I think where we see most of the snow today is going to be up here into the Cascades from Washington State down through Oregon as well, with rain kind of in those lower elevations as this storm system comes ashore the west coast. Now, going into this afternoon, evening, and tonight, that rain continuing, although finally beginning to work out of California itself and eventually really taking over much of Arizona and getting into the Four Corners region, and also some snow continuing to break out in these higher elevations of Idaho, Montana, seeing, those festive flakes fall as we are getting here in the just a couple days before Christmas. Now, as we're waking up tomorrow morning, you'll notice this is when these pieces of energy kind of combine and we get some cyclogenesis or just the formation of low pressure at the surface here into sections of eastern Colorado. And we'll definitely be watching for that throughout the day Saturday. And as that is unfolding, these snow showers are going to ramp up during the day Saturday, the 23rd here, through much of Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and even still down towards New Mexico and Arizona, seeing some of those flakes fly in those higher elevations. Now, as we go throughout the afternoon, Saturday into the evening hours and overnight into Sunday, this is when this turns into an all-out Christmas winter storm for much of the northern Great Plains, from again Colorado up through Nebraska and even South Dakota, getting in on some of that very nice snowfall. Now, unfortunately, if you're watching through much of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, this is just going to be a good old-fashioned rain. In fact, could even be some rumbles of thunder down here in Texas. Don't rule that out of your Christmas bingo card here. Going from Saturday afternoon into the overnight and into our Sunday. Now, this is as far out as this model goes by about the time we're waking up Christmas Eve morning, but it's going to be a very Christmassy scene, I can almost guarantee you, through much of Nebraska, both the Dakotas, and even parts of potentially northwestern Minnesota. They're getting in on some of that rain, but it's going to be a very fine line. Some folks going to be dealing with just some cold rain, other folks getting very festive snow, while on the southern end, again, we could even be dealing with some thunderstorms down into Texas going into our Christmas Eve itself. Now, the good news is by the time we get into Christmas Eve, I think if you're watching out here in California, Oregon, and Washington, we should really clear out and have much nicer weather, although definitely still snow left on the ground in those higher elevations, and that'll help to lead to a pretty nice white Christmas there for many folks. Now, today we do still have the risk of some excessive rainfall, especially down here into SoCal and into much of southern Arizona. Again, SoCal is another one of the fun things to say that, again, I might not be from California, but SoCal is something I'm going to say just to sound kind of cool. Anyway, again, make sure you got a way to get those watches and warnings. Again, in this part of the country, when we get a lot of rain at once, a lot of the times these deserty soils kind of struggle to absorb it all. So we could easily get some, flash flooding events down here into Southern California and through much of the southern half of Arizona throughout the day today. So again, just make sure you got a way to get those watches and warnings. And also, we could even see a slight risk for some severe weather today. Maybe some microbursts out here into southern Arizona, not ruling that out. And also the chance, of some thunder and lightning from Southern California through basically all of Arizona and New Mexico as well. So a very electric kind of weekend here on tap for a lot of folks before, again, this kind of clears out here going later on into the weekend. Now, as we go into tomorrow, we also continue that severe weather threat here into parts of West Texas. Again, I think the biggest threat here likely being some strong straight line winds, maybe some microbursts, but can't rule out maybe a brief isolated tornado by any stretch of the imagination. And again, thunder possible for just about the entire state of Texas and Oklahoma tomorrow as well. So watching out for that. Again, Maybe not what you were expecting this Christmas, but it's what's in the forecast. So just again, make sure you've got a way to be prepared for that. All right, zooming this on out into the east a little bit here and taking a look at this afternoon. Again, we've had these showers rolling on through much of the Mississippi and Ohio River Valley. I would expect that to continue throughout the day today and into this evening. This is about 8, 9, 10 o'clock you're looking at tonight. Pretty widespread rain through Chicago, Indianapolis, up through Detroit, and kind of surrounding areas. Can now rule out some rain. And it's, getting into late December here. You might think we'd be talking about snow, but just so much warm air is being pushed northward ahead of that next storm system. That this again, this rain snow line is pushed all the way up into Canada right now. So again, sorry for all of you snow lovers, but again, later on in the video, stick around. We'll talk about that pattern change, which might be a little bit more conducive towards your liking. Now, by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, still some rain here through the Ohio River Valley, but watch out. We could see a little bit of wintry precipitation here, I think, through sections of New York State, specifically the higher terrains there to the east of the Finger Lakes up towards the Catskills. Could easily see, some flurries and even, downright snow showers throughout the day tomorrow as this precipitation moves on through. And that could even make it into parts of New England tomorrow afternoon. Again, we still have this cold high pressure that is slowly working away, and not all that cold air is going to be able to escape in time. So can't rule out some light snow here, which will be very festive again through the 23rd and through maybe even the overnight hours getting into Christmas Eve morning through sections of New England. Unfortunately, though, we're going to warm up very quickly for the 24th and 25th, so that snow is not going to last very long or stay on the ground for a long time. Now, what you're looking at here, this is about 8, 9 o'clock on the 23rd that evening. Again, still dealing with some widespread showers here through the Ohio River Valley, but you'll notice rain really picking back up towards the west in the Great Plains as that storm system begins to slowly get its act together. And by the time we're waking up on Christmas Eve morning, still some showery weather through much of the east, but really more downpour weather again here, kind of from Texas all the way up through sections of Oklahoma, at least eastern Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, and even eastern Nebraska and western Iowa there, getting in on some of that rainfall. Again, this is the morning of Christmas Eve, so gonna watch out for that as well. Alrighty, so let's zoom this out again. Let's kind of move this ahead in time a little bit further towards the Christmas Day itself, sorry, and we'll pick up where we left off here on the morning of the 24th. This is our latest European model. Again, agrees pretty well with the high resolution rapid refresh model we just looked at. And again, depicting some very heavy rainfall here in kind of this circled area on your map, while we've got some potentially heavy snowfall on the backside in that yellow area as that cold air is kind of moving on in. Now, as we bring this into the afternoon of Christmas Eve, still expecting a very rainy Christmas Eve up and down the Mississippi River Valley from, again, Minneapolis and even up into parts of central Canada here, all the way down to the Gulf, where we could even be seeing some thunderstorms down here into southern Texas and Louisiana for the 24th. And again, as this is ongoing, still expecting some snow here on the backside. I think it's probably a little underdone here on the European, probably a little bit heavier there throughout the day on Christmas Eve through parts of Nebraska and the Dakotas, before eventually we're going to bed, and it's about midnight here, midnight Christmas morning, and you'll notice that rain continuing to push towards the east, and with it, that very warm air advecting northward out of the Gulf of Mexico, bringing a very, not Christmas-like atmosphere, unfortunately. But what I want you to notice here is this is when that pattern change kind of begins to set up shop. Low pressure still sitting here. Again, very warm air coming in on the front side, but look on the back side. See these kind of blue isobars indicating that rain snow line kind of beginning to get wrapped around on the back side of this low pressure. That is indicating to me some of that colder air that's been trapped up into Canada is slowly going to kind of work its way on the backside here. And by the time we're getting into Christmas Day itself, that afternoon and evening, latest European model shows more snow beginning to break out here into sections of eastern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, western Iowa even, as this cold air, again, notice wrapping around the center of low pressure. And that warm air still pushing northward on the front side, but slowly but surely, the storm is going to occlude, just meaning this cold air wraps far enough around that it starts to take over that warm air, and that will be the beginning of our pattern change here going into the week of Christmas itself and into the middle of that week. Now, moving this ahead into the 26th, Again, still some heavy rain going on in the east with warmer air. But again, watch this blue line here, slowly pushing eastbound, but definitely going to get there, I think, by the time the week is over. And the storm system still kind of meandering around and bringing at this point some scattered snow showers through the Midwest and then rain still on the front side. But here comes those blue isobars. And by the time we're getting into next Friday, really these last couple days of December, this cold air now getting all the way back down into sections of the southeast, and we could have some widespread snow showers there through the Midwest. Now, I will preface this by saying this is just the European model I'm showing you right now, and I'm only going to show you this one in today's video just because we've got so many changing parts here that what I will say the models are agreeing on is this cold air is going to arrive. Now, once we get into the middle and later part of next week, though, they kind of disagree a little on precipitation. Some models are kind of hinting maybe some storms kind of continue to ride around this main low pressure system, and that could bring, maybe some more widespread snow. Some models say, no, we're just going to have the cold air for now. We'll definitely continue to monitor that, though. But as we go here at the very end of the European run, I want you to notice how far south these isobars are. Getting well down into sections of Georgia, the Carolinas, and into the Tennessee River Valley. Again, that's indicating that return of cold air. And as you know, this winter has been full of storms that kind of like to ride along the Gulf here and potentially up the East Coast. Not saying we're going to get a big time snowstorm, but the pattern is becoming more conducive after this Christmas storm for a more wintry scene here going later on into next week into the last days of December and especially that first week of January. Now, one more thing I did want to mention, lightning flash density here. Again, going into this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon, you'll notice, I'm going to circle on your map where to watch here. We're going to have some lightning strikes and a bit of an electric kind of weekend here into the southern tier of the country, right through the Sun Belt, through Texas, parts of Saturday and Sunday, and eventually going into Sunday, Monday, further off towards sections of Mississippi, Alabama, and maybe even a couple bolts of lightning into Georgia and the Carolinas going into the middle of next week before that cold air takes on over. So we just wanted to briefly mention that for you. Now, taking a look at snowfall totals out of this storm system, I'm going to show you we do have some disagreement in our models, unfortunately, but this is our GFS ensemble members. You'll notice painting a pretty snowy picture here through much of Nebraska, Iowa, and into parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the Dakotas, which is quite different than what I just showed you on the European operational run. And then if I switch this on over towards the European ensembles, they show more of a bigger snowstorm, but more confined to Nebraska, South Dakota, and even sections of northern Kansas there. Now, what I want you to notice here is both models do generally agree on a bit of a bullseye here through South Dakota and Nebraska. I think those are the people that are most likely to see significant snowfall here during Christmas timeframe, and even a couple of days after. Where they kind of differ, though, is back towards Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Again, you'll notice snowfall totals very different in those places. So we'll have to iron out those details as we go in the days following Christmas. But I do feel confident in some heavy snow here through Nebraska and South Dakota at the very least, going into the days right before Christmas and into Christmas itself. And another good map to kind of just use to look at the best shot to see some of that wintry weather, the winter weather kind of severity index here through the next 3 days. You'll notice the people that are going to be most impacted again right here into this section of eastern Colorado and through much of Nebraska, South Dakota, and western Kansas there as well. Likely to see the most impacts from winter weather over the next 3 days. So definitely watching for that. All right, one more thing I will show you here is temperature anomaly. Again, we've been pretty cold in the East Coast here, but look at all this red making a very big return as very above average temperatures kind of take over the center of the country ahead of this next storm system. Now, as I move this further ahead, you'll notice that red slowly pushes eastbound, and by the time we're getting into, let me move this back a little bit, this is Christmas Eve afternoon. Everyone east of the Rockies basically above average for what we should be this time of year, and as we go into our Christmas day itself, that same general trend continues with, again, above average temperatures in the east. But you'll notice, again, as I've been talking about, look at this blue slowly starting to work back into the picture as we're getting signs of more wintry kind of temperatures slowly working in, and it's going to take a while, but by the time we get into next week, look at that blue taking over through much of the southeast and really up the East Coast, again, as some of that cooler weather returns, which is a great segue into our final part of the video here, where we talk about this kind of flipped back to winter, I think, going into the end of December and start of January. Now, this map I'm showing you right now is our 500 millibar height anomaly map, and I show this one all the time. But if you're new to the channel and maybe you're not quite familiar with what I'm showing you here, this does a great job at showing us kind of how deep or thin the atmosphere is based off of temperatures and pressure. So anytime you kind of see these blue colors on your map, that is indicating to us that we're seeing some area of low pressure developing. Whenever you're seeing these kind of red areas, that's generally high pressure and ridging. And this map does a great job at showing it. I'm going to kind of just draw a yellow line here and kind of watch what this yellow line does and how it correlates here. Where we have these red colors, that's ridging, meaning that warm air is kind of going northward. Where we have these blue colors, that's troughing. And you'll kind of see even the kink in the line here, just indicating cold air and storminess kind of diving southward a little bit. And another great example out here towards the Aleutians. And we just call this meridional flow in meteorology, which doesn't really matter, but it's in case you happen to care. There's your science lesson for the day. Anyway, so again, this is looking at right around Christmas. This is that Christmas storm we've been talking about right over the Great Plains. And here's that cold air again coming in on the back side. And here's that ridging on the front side, helping to bring up that very warm air. So again, kind of explains why we're seeing what we're seeing in the models. Now, as I move this ahead into time, you'll notice this big area of storminess and cooler weather slowly takes over much of the eastern half of the country. Here's that low pressure itself dragging back that colder air on the backside, and now that ridging is moving off towards the Atlantic and pushing that kind of warmer air out of the way. Now, our latest GFS model, what you're noticing also here is we're kind of getting what we call short waves in meteorology. Obviously, we've got an overall trough here, but we've got embedded smaller troughs here as well. See these kind of kinks in the lines poking out? Those are smaller pieces of energy that are kind of rotating around this colder air. And what that tells me is we could get some kind of storm to form here on the backside or kind of the southern end of this block of cold air. And that very easily could lead to some wintry weather somewhere in the eastern half of the country through the last couple days of December and into the start of January. And you'll notice that blue hangs around for a while. This is going into New Year's Eve here. And again, look at this. I mean, we're getting very impressive areas of kind of, spin or energy kind of riding around the southern end of this blue on your map. And that very easily could lead to some sort of wintry weather. And I'll be hoping for it personally. One, I'm a big winter weather fan. Two, I'll be off from work and school for this time period. So I'd love to go snow chase somewhere, hopefully in my own backyard. But right now, again, I really think I wouldn't get your hopes too high if you're kind of in the direct southeast. I think as we go through these pattern chains, generally it normally works north to south. So I'd be a little more excited if I'm in kind of this block. From the mid-Atlantic kind of over through the Ohio River Valley, I think right now that's the best place to be for some sort of wintry weather to end 2023 and start off 2024. And you'll notice going further ahead into time, look at this. I mean, this is just a beautiful pattern to see. These continue areas of blue crossing the southern half of the country with some cold air in place. Again, just very exciting to see this time of the year. Now, another way I will show this to you, and kind of an easier way to look at probably, is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling in our ensemble members. Now, you'll notice going into this Christmas storm, obviously, most of the snow that's going to fall, if I could draw in the right area, that would help. Back here towards the northern Great Plains is where we have that best shot. But as we get into this pattern change, you'll notice we kind of get some of these chances to ride a little bit further south. And as we go further into the long range, again, that kind of area I pointed out right here into the middle of the country, from the mid-Atlantic over through the Ohio River Valley, kind of gets higher chances of seeing some of that snow falling here, again, through the end of December and through the first week of January. So definitely going to watch that pattern here in the long run. Now, another thing I will mention here are temperatures. Again, this is just right after Christmas, these very warm temperatures in the east. But as I push this ahead, notice these blues take on over and really lock in very well here by the time we get to about the 29th of December through, again, that first bit of January. We've got the cold air in place. Now we just need to continue this southern storm track that we've had for so long now. So, again, it's doable. This is one of the more favorable patterns we've had so far this winter. It's not necessarily perfect. It's got its flaws in there, but nonetheless, we've got a shot here to flip back to some wintry things here towards the end of the year, and especially, I think, that first week of January. think in this next week and a half, 2 week stretch, could see some exciting stuff. Now, after that, looking way ahead in time, I think we probably go back to a little bit of a warmer pattern and then probably flip back to a colder pattern again towards the end of January, which again, that's very far out there and that's really more skeptical than anything. Um, but we'll definitely see what happens. With all that said, though, again, hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.